the remaining portion of his annual leave. He then proceeded to Abu Dhabi for the annual summit, which ran from January 11th to 15th. Vice President Kashim Shettima has arrived in Conakry to represent President Bola Tinubu at the inauguration of Guinea's president-elect Mamadi Doumbouya following his victory in December 2025 elections. The event marks the formal end of Guinea's four-year military transition and underscores Nigeria's commitment to democratic governance within the ECOWAS sub-region. The visit also reinforces Nigeria's role as a regional stabilizing force while advancing diplomatic and economic cooperation between both countries. President of the 10th Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, Deputy Senate President, Senator Barau Jibri, and Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule joined other political leaders and stakeholders in Lafayette to bid farewell to the late senator representing Nasarawa North Senatorial District, Godiya Akwanshiki. Delivering a condolence message on behalf of the National Assembly, Deputy Senate President Barau Jibri described the late Senator Godiya Akwanshiki, who died on December 31st, 2025 in an Indian hospital at the age of 52, as a rare patriot, servant leader, and committed supporter of national unity and stability. Barau said the Senate would greatly miss his positive contributions to legislative excellence and quality national service. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has expressed deep sorrow over the death of Imam Abubakar Abdullahi, the chief imam of Nagha village in Barkilla, the local government area of Plateau State, whose courageous actions during the 2018 communal crisis earned his national and international recognition. The late cleric, who died at the age of 92, became widely celebrated after sheltering over 200 Christians in his mosques and residence at the height of violent attacks, standing as a powerful symbol of interfaith harmony and humanity. President Tinubu described the Imam as a rare moral compass and urged religious and community leaders across Nigeria to draw inspiration from his legacy by promoting tolerance, unity, and peaceful coexistence. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says President Bola Tinubu is laying strong foundations for long-term economic growth through bold policy decisions aimed at stabilizing the economy and restoring confidence. Speaking while receiving members of the Grassroots Advocacy for Tinubu 2027 in Abuja, Idris said early signs of recovery were emerging across key sectors despite difficult choices taken by the administration. He reaffirmed the government's commitment to inclusive development and effective communication, stressing that public engagement and accurate information are critical to national stability. Troops of Operation Hadinkai have killed several terrorists in Adamawa and Borno states after successfully repelling coordinated attacks on military positions across the northeast. The military said alert troops engaged the attackers at a patrol base in Madagali, local government area of Adamawa State, forcing them to retreat without casualties to government forces. Follow-up clearance operations were carried out to eliminate remaining threats and ensure the safety of both civilians and military personnel. Operatives of the Department of State Services have rescued two pastors and a church member abducted by armed bandits while traveling from Kaduna to Niger State. The victims were freed during ongoing security operations, bringing relief to their families and Christian community across the region. Church leaders commended the DSS for successful rescue and called for sustained collaboration among security agencies, religious leaders, and communities to combat insecurity. While water remains the backbone of life, health, and development, yet for millions of Nigerians, access to clean and safe water is still a daily struggle, from homes to farms and hospitals. Water determines survival, dignity, and economic progress. Sadia Yakubu reports why water remains one of humanity's most critical needs.
Water is the foundation of life. It sustains human existence, supports development, and powers everyday activities across communities. From drinking and cooking to sanitation and hygiene, water is central to human survival. The human body relies on water for digestion, blood circulation, temperature regulation, and overall well-being. Unsafe water sources expose communities to preventable diseases such as cholera, typhoid, and diarrhea. Health experts say improved access to potable water remains one of the most effective ways to reduce disease outbreak and child mortality.
Yeah, water is very important because I don't think there is any human being, even animals, they need water. So you can't survive without water.
For many families, steady access to water determines productivity, income, and food security in many rural and semi-urban communities. The burden of water collection falls heavily on women and children. They walk long distance daily in search of water, limiting time for education, work, and personal development.
So even though we don't even bother to eat, but try and possible to be take water in minutes, in 24 hours, in second minutes, because it's good. It help your system, it build your system. So we should learn how to take water more.
Experts also want that growing population and climate change are putting increasing pressure on water resources. They emphasize the need for water conservation, improved infrastructure, and responsible use. Protecting water sources today is essential to guarantee availability for future generations.
People use water. We drink water, we bath with water, we use it and wash. Then
so water is very important.
So water is very important.
Water is more than a natural resource. It is life, health, dignity, and development. Sadia Yakubu, reporting for Global Television.
The Jigawa State Police Command has arrested 20 suspects and recovered 24,000 tablets of illicit drugs during intelligence-led operations across the state. Police said the drugs valued at over 1 million naira were intercepted while being transported from Kano State for illegal distribution. The suspects have been transferred to the state's Criminal Investigation Department for further investigation and prosecution.
Hello and thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at
You're watching the live broadcast of AM News. When AM News returns, we'll continue with this weather forecast, plus business, foreign, and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us.
Hello and thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at what the weather has in store as we head into Sunday during this Harmattan season. Starting with the northern part of the country, a bit of good news here. We are expecting an improvement in horizontal visibility across most cities. However, if you are in the northwest, you may still notice slight dust haze in the air. Then across the central region, moderate dust haze will persist, with visibility reducing to about 2 to 5 kilometers, especially around parts of the Federal Capital Territory and Minna. Now, turning our attention to the south, we expect a partly cloudy skies in the morning, but keep an eye on the skies later in the day, as there are slim chances of thunderstorms developing over parts of Edo, Oyo, Lagos, Bayelsa, Delta, Rivers, parts of Cross River, and Akwa Ibom State. We anticipate an improvement in air quality. However, conditions will remain unhealthy in the northern and north-central region, while the southern region is expected to experience air quality levels that are unhealthy for the sensitive groups. For our airline operators and aviation partners, a gentle reminder to always check for the latest weather updates via the NIMET eFlight folder portal. And that's our weather outlook for now. Stay safe, stay informed, and have a great Sunday ahead. I am Akemi Samarda.
It's good to have you back on AM News. In business, the Nigerian midstream and downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority says Nigeria's petrol importation fell sharply in December 2025, while supply from local refineries increased significantly. Data showed that imports declined by 19% as domestic refineries led by the Dangote refinery boosted output by 64%. The regulator said daily petrol consumption also rose to its highest level in December, reflecting increased economic activity. Workers across the world are facing mounting pressure to acquire new skills as artificial intelligence and digital technologies rapidly reshape job markets. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva stated this in a blog post which draws on new IMF analysis of millions of online job vacancies across advanced and emerging economies. The fund disclosed that 1 in 10 job posts in advanced economies and 1 in 20 in emerging market economies now require at least one new skill, underscoring how employability is increasingly tied to continuous learning and reskilling. 4 major aviation unions have issued a 14-day ultimatum to the management of the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology, Zaria, warning that workers will withdraw services if the long-delayed review of staff conditions of service is not concluded. The unions, Air Transport Services, Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, National Union of Air Transport Employees, Association of Nigeria Aviation Professionals, and the National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers said management has shown prolonged indecision and lack of commitment to staff welfare despite repeated engagements and assurances, noting that NCAT remains the only aviation agency yet to finalize its conditions of service review. They warned that failure to conclude the process within the stipulated period would trigger a total shutdown of activities at the institution, while NCAT spokesperson Jude Amadi said he was unaware of the ultimatum but promised to confirm and respond. The United Nations World Food Programme has warned that Nigeria's northeast is facing its worst hunger crisis in nearly a decade due to deep cuts in humanitarian aid. The agency said thousands are at risk of catastrophic food shortages, with millions of children projected to suffer malnutrition in 2026. Funding shortfalls have forced a drastic reduction in food assistance, raising fears of worsening humanitarian conditions across the region. And on the foreign scene, Uganda's long-serving president, Yoweri Museveni, has been declared the winner of the country's presidential election amid allegations of repression, violence, and an internet blackout. The opposition says the vote was neither free nor fair, as its candidate remains at large following a reported military raid. Mukhtar Kasim tells us more.
Uganda's Electoral Commission on Saturday announced President Yoweri Museveni as the winner of the presidential election, crediting him with nearly 72% of the vote and extending his rule into a 5th decade. The commission said the result reflected the will of the people, with Museveni defeating his closest challenger, opposition figure Bobi Wine, who secured about 24%.
Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, 71.65%. Now, therefore, candidate Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, having obtained the highest number of votes in the election and the votes cast in his favor being more than 50% of the valid votes cast at the election, the Commission hereby declares the elected president declares candidate Yoweri Kaguta Museveni the duly elected president of the Republic of Uganda at the presidential elections held on the 15th day of January 2026 for the next 5 years.
The announcement followed a tense post-election atmosphere marked by an internet shutdown, heavy security deployment, and reports of violence in parts of the country. Opposition groups allege widespread intimidation and fraud, while Bobi Wine confirmed he had gone into hiding after escaping what he described as a military raid on his home. Museveni's victory comes amidst growing scrutiny of Uganda's democratic space, with critics pointing to constitutional changes, security crackdowns, and restrictions on opposition activity as attention shifts to succession questions and post-election stability. Authorities insist the process was lawful, while opposition figures continue to contest the outcome. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
Uganda's opposition leader Bobi Wine has rejected provisional presidential election results that show President Yoweri Museveni extended his decades-long grip on power. Wine says the process was manipulated under heavy military presence and internet blackout. Samuel Odi reports.
Ugandan opposition candidate Bobi Wine has dismissed the provisional election results announced by Electoral Commission, describing them as a fraudulent and imposed through state repression. This figure placed President Yoweri Museveni far ahead, paving the way for another term that would extend his rule beyond 4 decades. The opposition says the vote took place amid widespread intimidation, and internet shutdown and restriction on its agents across several polling centers. Security deployments were intensified nationwide as authorities cited the need to maintain order following the election.
First and foremost, we reject whatever is being declared by Mr. Byabakama, because those so-called results that they're declaring are fake, and they don't in any way reflect what happened at the polling stations. And we demand that the internet be restored and the rightful declaration forms and tally sheets from the districts are uploaded on the internet so that the people of Uganda can see the rightful results in transparency. We also want to call upon the media, which has deliberately ignored what is happening in the country. There are widespread protests across the country, and these widespread arrests, and people are being killed. For example, in Butambala, at the house of Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, 10 people were shot and killed in one house by the police. We want to call upon the people of Uganda to non-violently protest and reject any effort to subvert their voice and demand that the rightful results are announced.
Bobi Wine said the results being announced do not reflect the will of the people, alleging that the process was controlled by security forces rather than voters. As the country awaits final confirmation of the results, tension remains high, with opposition figure warning that continued political suppression risks deepening public distrust in Uganda's democratic process. Samuel Odi for Global Television News.
While Uganda opposition leader Bobi Wine says he escaped a police raid on his home and is currently in hiding as the country awaits the outcome of the 10th election conducted under an internet blackout. Confusion followed earlier reports from his party claiming he was arrested and flown away in an army helicopter, coming a day after polls that was marred by violence, intimidation, and reports of multiple deaths. 81-year-old President Yoweri Museveni appears set to extend his decades-long rule, holding a commanding lead over Wine, the 43-year-old former musician turned politician, amid growing concern over the conduct of the election and the treatment of opposition figures. U.S. President Donald Trump has appointed former British Prime Minister Tony Blair to a board overseeing post-war reconstruction and governance in Gaza. The board, dominated by American officials, will focus on rebuilding, investments, and regional relations following years of conflicts. The move has drawn attention due to Blair's controversial history in the Middle East and Trump's broader vision for Gaza's redevelopment. And in sports, Nigeria's Super Eagles have ended their African Cup of Nations 2025 campaign on a high, defeating seven-time champions Egypt on penalties to secure the third place at the tournament. After a fiercely contested encounter that ended goalless at full-time, the match went straight to penalties, where the Super Eagles showed composure and nerve, urging the Pharaohs to claim a podium finish. Goalkeeper Stanley Nwabali emerged the hero of the night, pulling off crucial saves as Nigeria converted their spot kicks with confidence to steal the win and restore pride after a difficult semi-final exit. Delta State has been adjudged safe and ready to host the 15th Biennial Police Games, BIPOGA 2025, scheduled to take place from February 7th to February 14, 2026 in Asaba, the state's capital. This formed part of the recommendations of the Sports Planning Committee headed by Assistant Inspector General of Police, AIG Pam Joseph, at the conclusion of the two-day strategic conference and inspection exercise held in Asaba. A statement signed and released by the Police Public Relations Officer of the Delta State Command, SP Bright Edafe, and made available to journalists in Warri assured participants and members of the public that preparations for the games are progressing steadily. According to the statement, the conference and inspection exercise were aimed at fine-tuning operational plans, logistics, and coordination ahead of the commencement of the Games. The 2025 African Cup of Nations in Morocco has set a new tournament record after producing 120 goals ahead of Sunday's final, surpassing the previous benchmark of 119 goals set at the 2023 edition in Côte d'Ivoire. The goal surge has been driven by Africa's traditional powerhouses, including Morocco, Senegal, and Nigeria, alongside emerging stars who have matched established names in impact and consistency. With the third place match and final set still which has been played, the goal could tally yet increase further, sealing AFCON 2025 as the highest scoring and one of the most entertaining tournaments in the competition's history. And that's it on AM News. A quick reminder, the Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and on StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using @Global TV NG. I am Anieti Patrick. Thank you for watching.